Welcome back to Hopeful Horizon, where we bring you stories that inspire, challenge, and move you. Today's story takes us to the heart of an upscale department store, where an innocent shopping trip turns into a confrontation fueled by bias and assumptions. What starts as a simple gesture of gratitude from a son to his mother spirals into an eye-opening moment that reveals the courage it takes to stand tall in the face of injustice. Stay with us as we explore a tale of resilience, accountability, and a power shift that will leave you speechless. If you love stories that shine a light on the human spirit and spark important conversations, don't forget to comment below. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an inspiring story from Hopeful Horizon. And let us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear from you. The soft jingle of bells echoed through the revolving glass doors as Marcus stepped into Harper & Company, one of the city's most upscale department stores. The polished marble floors gleamed beneath the bright overhead lights, reflecting the grandeur of the high-end displays. Marcus tugged at the sleeves of his navy hoodie, feeling the weight of the cold stares from employees stationed strategically around the store. Though he was dressed casually, his appearance was clean and presentable, jeans free of rips, sneakers spotless. Yet he couldn't ignore the way their gazes lingered, silently measuring him against the store's expected clientele. He inhaled deeply, determined not to let it bother him. Today wasn't about him. Today was about his mom. He approached the display of designer handbags, his eyes catching on a sleek black leather purse with gold accents. It was the perfect gift for her birthday, sophisticated yet understated, just like her. Running a finger along the buttery leather, he smiled, recalling the countless sacrifices she had made for him. Angela Taylor wasn't just his mom, she was his inspiration. She had worked long hours, often juggling 2 jobs, to ensure Marcus never went without. And now, as the CEO of a prominent retail brand, she remained as grounded and selfless as ever. Marcus had overheard her on more than one occasion, speaking passionately about uplifting others who had faced challenges similar to her own. Buying this purse wasn't just about the gift. It was his way of saying thank you for everything she'd done for him. As Marcus examined the price tag, a figure in the store's control room zeroed in on him. Rick Benson, Harper & Company's head of security, leaned forward in his chair, squinting at the monitor. "Got another one," he muttered to himself, tapping a button to zoom in on Marcus. Dressed in a hoodie and sneakers, Marcus stood out against the usual clientele of sharply dressed professionals and chic socialites. "Kid thinks he's slick," Rick said, his tone laced with suspicion. He adjusted his earpiece, keeping his eyes glued to the screen as Marcus moved to another display. Meanwhile, Marcus ran his fingers over another handbag, debating whether it would suit his mom more than the first one. He felt a shift in the air, a prickling at the back of his neck, as though someone were watching him. Glancing over his shoulder, he noticed a stocky man in a security uniform standing near the entrance, his eyes fixed on Marcus. Shrugging off the unease, Marcus focused on the task at hand. After several minutes of deliberation, he returned to the first purse and carefully picked it up to inspect the detailing. That's when Rick approached him. "Excuse me, son," Rick said, his voice sharp and authoritative. "Mind telling me what you're doing with that bag?" Marcus turned slowly, his brows furrowing in confusion. "I'm looking at it. Is there a problem?" Rick crossed his arms, his expression hardening. "Let's cut to the chase. What's in your pockets?" Marcus blinked, taken aback. "What? Nothing. I don't have anything in my pockets." Rick's eyes narrowed. "Then you won't mind turning them out." A murmur of discomfort rippled through the nearby shoppers, but no one stepped forward. Marcus felt the weight of their stares, their curiosity mingled with judgment. "I haven't stolen anything," Marcus said evenly, meeting Rick's gaze. "I'm just trying to buy a gift for my mom." Rick smirked, tapping his walkie-talkie. "Then you won't mind cooperating, will you? Or should I call this in and let the police sort it out?" Marcus clenched his fists, his heart pounding. He had done nothing wrong, yet here he was, being treated like a criminal. The urge to lash out surged within him, but he pushed it down. Losing his temper would only make things worse. "I'm not showing you anything without a reason," Marcus said firmly. "You have no right to search me." Rick raised an eyebrow, clearly unaccustomed to being challenged. His hand moved to his walkie-talkie, his finger hovering over the button. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, kid," he warned. Marcus stood his ground, his voice steady despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. "I didn't steal anything, and I'm not letting you treat me like I did." The tension in the room was palpable as the confrontation reached a boiling point. Rick's walkie-talkie crackled as he prepared to escalate the situation. The crowd edged closer, their whispers filling the air, as Marcus's pulse quickened. "Don't do this," he thought, his mind racing. But Rick wasn't backing down. "Step away from the bag," Rick ordered, his tone now loud enough to draw the full attention of the room. Marcus sighed deeply, placing the purse back on the display table. "There. Happy? Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to finish shopping." But Rick wasn't satisfied. He took a step closer, his towering frame casting a shadow over Marcus. "You're not going anywhere until I'm sure you're not hiding anything." The room was silent except for the muffled buzz of the store's ambient music. Customers paused mid-browse, their eyes darting between Rick and Marcus. A few pulled out their phones, recording the escalating confrontation. Marcus raised his hands slightly, a show of surrender despite the fire burning in his chest. "I told you I'm not hiding anything. If you think I am, prove it." Rick's jaw tightened. "Don't play games with me, kid. Hand over the backpack." "No," Marcus said simply, his voice firm. The refusal seemed to ignite something in Rick, who lunged forward and grabbed the straps of Marcus's backpack. "Then I'll check it myself." Marcus instinctively stepped back, pulling the bag with him. "Hey, you can't do that." The crowd gasped, and murmurs of disapproval rippled through the onlookers. A middle-aged woman near the perfume counter whispered to her companion, "This is getting out of hand." "Leave him alone," someone shouted, but the voice was drowned out by the rising tension. "Let go," Marcus demanded, his grip tightening on the bag. Rick yanked harder, nearly pulling Marcus off balance. "That's enough." A sharp, authoritative voice rang out. Rick froze, his hand still gripping the backpack. The crowd parted as a tall, elegantly dressed woman strode into the center of the commotion. Her presence commanded attention, her tailored suit exuding power and confidence. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" she asked, her voice cold and cutting. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Rick, oblivious to the woman's identity, sneered. "Ma'am, I'm handling a shoplifting situation. Please step back." Angela Taylor's eyes narrowed, her expression icy. "Shoplifting? From my son?" Rick blinked, the words not registering immediately. "Your son?" "Yes," Angela said, stepping closer, her voice like steel. "And in case you haven't figured it out yet, I'm Angela Taylor, CEO of Harper & Company's parent company." A hush fell over the room, the weight of Angela's revelation sinking in. Rick's face paled as he stammered, I didn't realize." "Clearly," Angela interrupted, her tone dripping with disdain. "Release my son immediately." The security guard reluctantly let go of the backpack, his hands shaking slightly. Angela turned to Marcus, her gaze softening. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Marcus nodded, though his hands were still trembling. "Yeah, I'm fine." Angela straightened, her focus shifting back to Rick. "This isn't just about my son," she said, raising her voice so the crowd could hear. "This is about the blatant racial profiling and abuse of power that happens far too often in places like this." The crowd erupted in murmurs, their phones still recording, as Angela's words cut through the tension. Rick opened his mouth to respond, but Angela silenced him with a glare. "Save it," she said. "We'll be pulling the security footage, and trust me, this isn't over." The chapter ends with Angela standing tall, her presence a beacon of justice amidst the chaos. The crowd looks on, their murmurs turning to applause as the weight of the moment settles over everyone. Angela Taylor's heels clicked against the polished marble floor as she strode through Harper & Company. Her tailored suit, a deep navy with subtle gold accents, screamed authority. Beside her was the store manager, a nervous man named Daniel, whose pale face betrayed his growing dread. As they approached the center of the commotion, Angela's piercing gaze took in every detail. The crowd of onlookers, the shocked expressions, and Rick Benson, standing rigidly, still clutching his walkie-talkie. "Where is my son?" Angela demanded, her voice sharp and commanding. Rick turned, his eyes briefly landing on Angela. Dismissing her as another bystander, he sneered. "Ma'am, I'm handling a security situation here. Please step back." Angela didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, her presence alone forcing Rick to take a half step back. "You're handling a security situation by harassing my son?" The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, some shoppers pulling out their phones again to capture what was unfolding. Daniel cleared his throat nervously. "Rick, I think you should—" "I've got this," Rick snapped, cutting him off. "Ma'am, with all due respect, your son was acting suspiciously. If you don't want to get involved, I suggest you're making a grave mistake," Angela interrupted, her tone now icy. "I am Angela Taylor, CEO of Harper & Company's parent company." The color drained from Rick's face as he processed her words. His eyes flicked to Daniel, whose panicked expression confirmed the truth. Around them, employees began to whisper, their hushed tones a mixture of awe and fear. Angela gestured to Marcus, who stood silently, his shoulders squared, but his jaw clenched. "This young man you've been harassing is my son. Release him, now." Rick stammered. I didn't know. I was just doing my job." "Your job," Angela said, her voice cutting like glass, "is to ensure the safety and dignity of every customer who walks through those doors. Instead, you've singled out and humiliated an innocent man based solely on your own prejudices." The tension in the room was palpable. Angela turned to Daniel, who was now visibly sweating. "Bring me the security footage. I want to see exactly what happened." Daniel nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am. Right away." He scurried off toward the control room, leaving Angela to deal with Rick. The minutes dragged on, the silence punctuated only by Angela's steady gaze and Rick's shifting stance. Finally, Daniel returned, holding a tablet with the footage queued up. He handed it to Angela with trembling hands. Angela pressed play. The video showed Marcus entering the store, browsing the displays and picking up the purse to examine it. At no point did he behave suspiciously. There was no furtive glancing, no pocketing of items, just a young man shopping for a gift. She held the tablet up for the crowd to see. "This is the man you accused of theft," she said, her voice carrying through the room. The crowd murmured, a few gasps audible as they watched the footage. Rick looked down, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Explain yourself," Angela demanded, her tone leaving no room for excuses. Rick opened his mouth but closed it again, clearly at a loss. Finally, he muttered, "I made a mistake." "A mistake?" Angela repeated, her voice rising. "No, Mr. Benson, this isn't just a mistake. This is systemic. This is what happens when biases go unchecked, and it ends today." Turning to the crowd, Angela addressed them directly. "This isn't just about my son. This is about a much bigger problem. A culture that allows individuals like Mr. Benson to act on their prejudices without accountability." The chapter ended with Angela's words hanging in the air, the crowd silent and reflective as they realized the weight of the moment. The fallout was swift. "Effective immediately, you are suspended," Angela told Rick, her voice firm but measured. "There will be a full investigation into your actions and the broader training protocols at this store. Depending on the findings, you may have the opportunity to redeem yourself, but that's entirely up to you." Rick bristled, his initial indignation faltering under Angela's unwavering gaze. "I was just doing my job," he muttered weakly. Angela's eyes narrowed. "If that's your idea of doing your job, then you clearly have a lot to learn." The crowd, which had thinned slightly, began clapping. Marcus watched as Rick slunk away, his shoulders hunched in defeat. Outside the store, reporters had gathered, alerted by the viral videos of the incident. Angela stepped out onto the grand staircase, her son by her side, and faced the cameras with the same poise she had displayed inside. "I'm Angela Taylor, CEO of Harper & Company's parent company," she began, her voice carrying over the murmurs of the press. Today, an unacceptable incident occurred in one of our stores. My son, Marcus, was wrongfully accused and humiliated by someone who allowed their biases to cloud their judgment. Marcus stood tall, his hands clasped in front of him. "This isn't just about my son," Angela continued. "This is about the countless individuals who face similar treatment every day, but don't have the platform to speak out. As a company, we take full responsibility for what happened today, and I personally vow to ensure it never happens again." She outlined the reforms she would implement, including mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all employees and the creation of a task force to address systemic issues within the company. When the press conference ended, Angela turned to Marcus. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. Marcus smiled, the weight of the day finally lifting. "I didn't do much." "Yes, you did," Angela said. "You stood your ground. You showed grace under pressure. That's more powerful than you realize." Over the next few days, Marcus reflected on her words. He realized that his mother's true power wasn't just in her position, it was in her ability to inspire change. He resolved to follow her example, not just in his career, but in his everyday life. As for Rick, Angela made an unexpected decision. Rather than firing him outright, she offered him the chance to work on the company's new diversity and inclusion initiative. "You can choose to be part of the solution," she told him during their final meeting, "but that's entirely up to you." Rick's face was a mixture of shame and determination as he nodded. The story ended on a note of hope and accountability, leaving readers to wonder whether Rick would rise to the challenge or remain unchanged. Marcus, meanwhile, knew one thing for sure: the lessons he'd learned that day would stay with him for the rest of his life. Thank you for joining us on this journey of courage, justice, and transformation. Marcus's story reminds us of the importance of standing firm, even when the odds feel overwhelming, and how one moment can inspire a movement for change. If this story moved or inspired you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from our community. Don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a story that challenges, inspires, and empowers. And be sure to tell us where you're listening from. Until next time, stay hopeful, stay strong, and always strive for a better tomorrow.